Emilia Perez has recently tied the record for second most Oscar nominations for a single film, putting it alongside some of the greatest movies ever made, and nearly everybody is pissed off about it. Emilia Perez is about a Mexican cartel boss and their journey to transition into becoming a woman, and it was created entirely by a heterosexual French man who openly admitted he did no research into any of the topics discussed in the movie at all. And consequently, many queer critics and many Mexican critics are upset with how those topics were addressed throughout the film in what is one of Netflix's most decorated original projects. Oh yeah, and did I mention it's a musical?
Men to woman, or woman to men.
Man to woman.
From penis to vagina.
With a song like that, I think you know what we're both going to be in for today. Well, what I'll be in for, and you guys will kind of just get to see my anguish by proxy. Sadly, that song in context was perhaps the highlight of the entire film. Despite all of the controversy, Emilia Perez won the jury prize at the prestigious Cannes Film Festival, it won the Best Picture award at the Golden Globes, and it is currently the #2 frontrunner, according to betting markets, to win Best Picture at the Oscars this year. Its only competition is a movie so long there have been headlines about how Academy voters apparently didn't even finish watching it. So it's possible that in another month we could be looking back and realizing that the penis to vagina song was a highlight of 2024's Best Picture winning movie.
Mammoplasty.
Yes.
Vaginoplasty.
Yes.
Rhinoplasty.
Yes.
Laryngoplasty.
Yes.
This begs the question, how could a film this out there, this controversial, be doing so well in the industry awards circuit? And I think the answer to that is quite simple. If you know nothing about Mexico or cartels or the trans experience in general, and you watch Emilia Perez, it can strike you as a film that is exceptionally progressive and groundbreaking. And in some ways, one can argue that it is. Star Karla Sofía Gascón is the first ever trans woman to be nominated for Best Actress in the Academy Awards.
Hey everyone, Editing Pat here really quickly because it's breaking as I'm editing this video. In the last few hours, there have been a deluge of headlines about Gascon's old tweets that are really not that old. They're only like 3 or 4 years old, and they are just exceptionally racist. And I just wanted to make a note of that because it's distressing. Okay, back to the video.
You know, the film is certainly relatively unique, and for the most part that's about as far as I can take the praise for Emilia Perez. And you know, if I'm using the same half compliments I had for Megalopolis, your film is probably in trouble.
So go back to the club.
But if you know anything about the topics discussed in Emilia Perez, or have even a remotely functional bullshit detector, the film's lack of authenticity and lack of basic logic really shine through. Oh yeah, and did I mention that the musical elements of the film are pretty weak?
If he's a he, she'll be a he. If he's a she, she'll be a she.
This doesn't help the film at all, because anytime it is trying to find its footing, completely in spite of itself, mind you, it basically takes out a musical banana peel and throws it in front of itself, slips on it, and gives the audience a concussion. Let's take a deep dive into the narrative, the controversy, and the numerous foundational problems with the film, and why, if Emilia Perez does in fact win Best Picture, not only am I losing my Oscar pool, but I am losing any sense of respect I have for the industry of cinema as a whole. Heart. Back by popular demand. You're really going out on a date smelling like that? I mean, I'm wearing deodorant. Deodorant? What are you, an 8th grade boy using half a can of Axe body spray? It's time to elevate. Hey, I don't even know how to use these. They're fragrances. Express yourself. Would you dress the same way on a date versus going to school, or to work, or to Antarctica on a 6-month work assignment? No? Then why should you smell the same? Good point, Suave Patrick. And now, thanks to today's sponsor, Scentbird, you don't have to. Scentbird is a subscription service that will send you fragrances from designer brands at affordable prices every single month. And the best part, you can try different fragrances at low risk. A bottle of a high-end fragrance can run you anywhere from $300 to $500. So if you don't like it, you're going to be stuck smelling like a cabbage for the next 9 months. Scentbird, however, will send you a new scent the very next month. Personally, I've been enjoying Vanilla Sky by Skylar. It's got notes of vanilla and notes of cedar. It's been really perfect as the weather has gotten colder and remained cold. I also really like Scentbird's limited time fragrance Moon Bear by Sanctuary. With lavender and cedar notes, really makes me feel like I'm on top of the world. Perfect for date night. Spiritually, I relate a lot to bears. I'm afraid you're more of an otter, my friend. So if you want to start smelling your best, scan the QR code or use code PAT55 for 55% off your first month at Scentbird. You can get your first fragrance for half the price. That's just $8. And your next month will only be $16.95. Super affordable. Again, you can scan the QR code or click the link down below in the description and use code PAT55 for 55% off your first month at Scentbird. Thanks again to Scentbird for sponsoring this video, and now back to your regularly scheduled programming. For starters, I'm going to acknowledge that I'm not an expert in many of the things that the film decidedly got wrong. So at times I will be bringing up other perspectives and different analysis that has been done by people who are more knowledgeable in those sorts of things, and my works cited as always are in the links down below in the description. This type of basic fact-finding is really super important, even for a YouTube video, but it apparently is something that director and writer of this film, Jacques Audiard, did not do. He admits, through a Spanish language interpreter, that he didn't really need to do much research because he already knew everything that he needed to know. And I'm certainly glad that an Oscar-nominated director took the same intellectual approach that a 10th grader does before they fail an algebra test. Don't bother looking at the quadratic equation, Jack. I'm sure you've got it all up there, except you don't. See me after class. What Audiard said in this interview has been covered to death, so I won't belabor the point, but it's good to just let everybody here know that Emilia Perez really does have a sickening foundation of ignorance.
That's fighting ignorance with more ignorance. No, with more ignorance.
Because believe me, even as someone with a limited background in contemporary Mexican history, I could tell that this film is shockingly tone deaf. And speaking of tones, that's a little language linguistics pun in there for you. Okay, the booze are deserved. But let's talk about the Spanish in the film. It bears noting that the film set in Mexico, even though it was filmed in France with a distinctly Mexican story, has very few Mexican actors and actresses making up the actual film. Of the three main characters, Selena Gomez, yeah, she's in this movie, we'll get to that one in a second, she was raised in the US, as was other star Zoe Saldana, and Gascón is from Spain. Their accents are all over the place, as even the director admitted, and despite his attempts to fix it in post with dubbing, social media users were incredibly critical. Comedian Eugenio Derbez called the Spanish indefensible before Selena Gomez left a very sad comment on his TikTok, forcing him to apologize. And he kind of had to apologize. There's really not too many options that a minor celebrity has when a major celebrity leaves a comment on your social media page dripping with sad energy, and reminded me of the types of comments I was posting on Instagram when I was a pathetic 8th grader who was sad that my friends were abandoning me. Hey guys, I'm sorry I wasn't good enough, but I want you guys to know I really am trying to be a better friend. Let me know how I can be a better friend, okay? You really have to apologize to that, otherwise you look like an asshole. But since fame has been brought up, yes, Selena Gomez and Zoe Saldana are both in this film, both of whom are incredibly famous actresses in America. Why do I bring this up? Well, because in addition to not only being nominated for Best Picture in both the Oscars and the Globes, this film was nominated for Best International Feature in a lot of these award shows, and I think really it kind of spits in the face of the spirit of competition for those categories. Most people, myself included, really don't watch as much international cinema as we probably should, and when these award shows are coming out with the best international films, it really is an opportunity to showcase unique perspectives, unique filmmakers, people that mainstream American audiences have literally never heard of. And color me a sore loser, but I think a French director taking two very famous American actresses, making them do a Spanish language film with wonky accents, really is not in the spirit of a fair competition. Alright, I think you get the picture. Let's break down the actual narrative and structure of the film, because once we do that, the other criticisms that exist for this movie are going to become glaringly apparent. At its core, Emilia Perez is about a cartel boss transitioning and becoming a woman, and the problems that are associated with that. But it's also about a lawyer named Rita, played by Zoe Saldana, who is unsatisfied with her life, but frankly, due to how she is written in the movie, she is never going to take any steps or do anything to actually get that satisfaction.
I can't get no erection.
One of the biggest problems with Emilia Perez is that we spend the first third of the movie with Rita as the unquestioned main character, but then as the narrative transitions more to focus on the titular Emilia Perez, Rita is more or less forgotten. She doesn't stop developing entirely per se, but she is put on the back burner, which is so jarring. I think the best way to represent this stagnation is to look at one musical number towards the end of the film where Jessie, Selena Gomez's character, and Emilia Perez are literally on opposite sides of Rita, and instead of performing a pivotal role, the only thing she's really saying in the musical number is stay calm, stay calm, stay calm. And that's pretty much it. By the way, that's going to be the sequence that is really going to be clowned on if this film does in fact win Best Editing, just so you're aware. At any rate, even though I just told you she is going to be forgotten, let's try to remember her first. Rita is a lawyer writing her opening statement, which is not going to be read by her, it's going to be read by her boss, as they prepare to try to win a case, getting a man acquitted for a murder he did commit. He killed his wife, and they are trying to get everybody to say that it is a suicide.
Teenage suicide.
Seems interesting enough, but oh yeah, here is a random out of nowhere musical number. And at this point in my viewing experience, being only 5 minutes in, I was somewhat optimistic, how naive I was, because the musical number wasn't all bad, it was just about half bad. It continually oscillated between being objectively terrible and kind of catchy. So I thought if they could rein it in, maybe it would make for a enjoyable movie.
But I'm reining it in. I'm reining it in!
Nope. That's not gonna happen at all. I was wrong. Because Emilia Perez basically does a lot of the same things that other failed musical of this year did. Joker 2. And if Joker 2 is in the same sentence as your movie, and the sentence is not, wow, that movie is so much better than Joker 2, you are fucked. The thing in particular I'm referencing is the abysmal talk singing that Emilia Perez and Joker 2 both loved.
Contestar esa pregunta supondría que usted ya se...
Can we get a do-over on that? Can we get a DO? Can we get a reshoot? Yeah, just for safety. Yeah. Rita finishes her opening arguments, which, by the way, that has to be a typo because then we're in the courtroom and her boss is delivering the closing arguments and their client is acquitted. Shortly thereafter, our hero gets her literal call to action while sitting on the toilet, as a shadowy voice promises her wealth beyond her wildest dreams. This prompts another musical number where Rita wonders what does she have to lose. Your life is probably what you have to... Oh, there you go, the movie agrees with me. Even if you're unsatisfied with your life, you could still die, and that sucks. And pretty soon after that, she's got a bag over her head and is in a van going to who knows where. She's been taken for a meeting with ruthless cartel boss Manitas Del Monte, who wants Rita's help as a lawyer in securing him a sex change operation. Manitas needs a doctor who will do it silently and perfectly, and that's why Rita has been tasked with interviewing all the different doctors. See, with the context, doesn't this musical number make a whole lot more sense? No? It's still insane and frankly insensitive? Okay, I'm gonna spend a little bit of time breaking down the lyrics and the meaning of this song because believe it or not, it is more than just cheap laughs. I mean, granted, it is also cheap laughs, but it's got some real insidious meaning to it too. Something that Amelia Hansford of Pink News notes, the song rolls in a boob job with a nose job with bottom surgery, which is something that is not super commonplace for a lot of trans folks. Something else I will add is that in the song, the doctor also prices out what a butt job would be in terms of cost for Rita, which cheapens the entire message I think the film is trying to get across. Butt jobs and nose jobs, fundamentally, elective cosmetic surgeries are not the same thing as gender-affirming care, which will make somebody's body match the person that they fundamentally are on the inside. And one more thing I will say before we get to the rest of this sordid experience is that the actor there portraying the doctor, Stéphane Lee Kwang, really feasts. He did a great job. And I would love to see him in a musical where he is not being forced to sing about penises becoming vaginas. But that isn't the only doctor musical number we'll get. No, we're gonna get another one because Rita meets another doctor, Dr. Wasserman, and they have a whole musical number, and Rita approaches it with a newfound urgency because Manitas just had her beaten up because she was taking too long and was flying first class. Dr. Wasserman doesn't like that this is being done in secret and insists that Manitas not transition unless they're willing to to do it socially.
Will you please tell your Mr. Mystery, instead of having plastic surgery, he'd better change ID.
Sometimes every so often with these reviews, it's really hard to write jokes about this, because what is there to say about that other than I can't believe this movie might win Best Fucking Picture? This musical number, though, actually is fairly illuminating, because after watching it, you can tell right away why the Academy voters love this movie. If you're an Academy voter, especially on the older side, having been in the last few years the subject of constant criticism, there are not enough women who are being included, Oscars are so white, Oscars are irrelevant, then you see this movie and you think, well, this is a chance to prove everybody wrong, but you're wrong about that too. Because by elevating this film, it shows fundamentally you know very little about the trans experience, because if you know nothing about that trans experience, I can see why this musical number might strike you as super powerful. Because it is cartoonishly black and white, like on one end, here's the evil doctor who says it's basically just the same thing as cosmetic surgery, and here's the lofty Rita singing about if you change Manitas's body, you will change the world. By getting this transition surgery, the world will be made a better place, so saith Rita. As someone who has trans friends and has trans folks in my life, and more importantly though, as someone who doesn't have brain damage, I was not captivated by this incredibly dreadful musical number. This song is a lot of things, but one thing it isn't is subtle. And another thing it isn't is tasteful. If my best friend started singing to a homophobic doctor about how they need to let me be gay because me being gay will change society, I guess I'd be flattered, but more than that, I think I'd be insulted. Hey, doctor, you need to let my boy be gay. And if you let the men go play, you'll be a better man. And if you didn't like that, well, I'm glad to see I matched the quality of Emilia Perez. Wasserman, though, eventually agrees to do the surgery and flies out to Mexico to go do it, and meanwhile Manitas is preparing for all of the kids to go to Switzerland and be set up there. And it's initially unclear if the wife is coming with them or it's just being discarded, but no, the wife, Jessie, played by Selena Gomez, she will be making the trip to Switzerland as well. And it's here we see one of many, many instances of faulty character logic from the titular Emilia Perez, and look, I'm not here to nitpick every single decision that every single character makes, largely because in good cinema, you're really not going to feel compelled to do that at all. You're just going to be enjoying the movie. But I have to bring this up. You just never come away with it thinking like it made sense for the character of Manitas to make this decision of sending away your children, and then literally in the next scene, regretting the decision and reversing it. At any rate, Manitas gets the surgery and is literally reborn, as the movie portrays it, as Emilia Perez, and that is complete with full-on mummy rap and a scene where she inspects her private parts with a makeup mirror, and just once I would love to see some queer representation with a modicum of subtlety. I don't think that's that hard to ask, and frankly, if the director had done even a tiny bit of research, the movie would have been a lot better. But yes, as the narrative of the movie goes, Manitas and all of his numerous crimes is dead. Person here is Emilia Perez, and she doesn't have any connection to him, which is so not how any of this works. And this is one of the larger, most damning criticisms of the movie, the fact that Emilia's transition is portrayed as inherently virtuous, so much so that it literally absolves her of all of her past crimes. Her past as the leader of a violent cartel which sold synthetic drugs is completely erased because she transitioned. Yeah, that's how it works. And let me just clarify this for the director. You do not magically become a new entity when you get surgery to transition. What you've done in the past very much has still happened. I know J.K. Rowling would be fuming at me invoking her work, but Dr. Wasserman did not obliviate your multiple murders, Emilia. Anyway, surgery is successful. It's now 4 years later. In the very next scene, Rita is now rich, and how does the movie choose to demonstrate that? Why? By having her at a nice restaurant in London. Very creatively inventive. Oh, Robbie Williams. I think I need to hear this song in a musical with a monkey. I'd have had a lot more respect for this movie if they had chosen to depict Rita's newfound wealth in a more interesting way. Like maybe she's operating one of those fancy water jetpacks as onlookers gawk from the shoreline. But Emilia Perez, initially a stranger to Rita, has sought her out, and while Rita is initially scared, that fright eventually subsides and is replaced with the tipping point of dog shit musical numbers in this film.
Rita, no vine por casualidad. No, Rita, no vine por casualidad.
That's a brief clip. I've spared you, largely, of what I had to experience, because most of that musical number is Rita and Emilia taking turns saying, I didn't come here by chance, you didn't come here by chance, I didn't come here by chance, and by this point I'm realizing the 5th watertight compartment has been breached, we are starting to go down, and I am locked behind those gates, and I'm going to drown. I don't have a door to float on, and there is no Carpathia coming to rescue me. Emilia tells Rita that she wants her kids back, so Rita goes to fetch them, and now they're all living together in a mansion back in Mexico under the guise that Emilia is a long-lost relative of Manitas. Jesse, however, is not happy to be living with Emilia and the kids, resulting in this very bizarre musical number, which really only happens because one of Emilia's housekeepers opens the blinds, and Jesse really just kind of wants to sleep in until the late afternoon. I actually don't hate this musical number, although the more I think about it, the worse it gets. Very similar to A Complete Unknown. You're telling me the entire third act is Timothée Chalamet playing an electric guitar or not playing an electric guitar? I don't care. I don't know, the musical number, I mean, it's bad, but I do relate to it. You know, who here among us hasn't been told that their husband is dead and had to move to Switzerland for 4 years only to find out that they have to move back to Mexico and they just want to sleep in? I relate to at least one of the things that I just listed. Okay, that aside, let's talk about how Emilia Perez glorifies the cartels and cartel violence to a sickening degree.
This is glorifying the cartel.
Rita and Emilia are at the market, and they're presented with a missing poster from a grieving mother. Her son, a student, has presumably been kidnapped and killed by the cartels. This could be invoking the specific 2014 Iguala mass kidnapping incident, or it could be just a general reflection of the fact that there are over 100,000 people who are missing in Mexico. This is largely caused by cartel violence, innocent people getting caught up in it, and most of the bodies are never recovered, and most of the perpetrators are never brought to justice. It is one of the most difficult things that Mexico is currently dealing with as a country. And what does this movie do? The movie glorifies Emilia, one of the people directly responsible for this epidemic, and turns it into a musical number. I'm not joking, the movie truly is that tone deaf. Emilia, feeling guilty for the issue she used to actively cause, starts an NGO where she bribes former narcos into telling the organization where the murder victims that were missing were actually buried, burned, or what have you. This is portrayed by the movie, I you not, as a turn of paramount nobility.
Conozco un buen de arrepentidos que estarían dispuestos a hacer el bien.
Do some good in the world? Are you kidding me? Generally, the good thing to do is to not murder innocent people. Closure is good, and I'm sure that this service was helpful for the people using it. But let's dial into the movie for a second. This NGO is being facilitated by a former cartel kingpin. It's like spending the entire first half of your life setting people on fire, and spending the second half of it handing out those tiny little water cups you'll see if you're running a 5K. Like, thank you for the effort, but you are not even repairing 1/100th of the damage that you caused. This isn't even to speak about the fact that the opulent lifestyle of Emilia Perez is entirely financed by the ill-gotten gains from when she was running a cartel. In what is the most damning omission in the entire film, in my opinion, there is never any reconciliation made between the fact that Emilia's cosmopolitan rediscovery of self is entirely funded by her murder and her drug trafficking. Instead, we get a musical number about how the family of the victims are so grateful for Emilia Perez. This is something that doing basic research or involving any Mexican perspective, even casually in the writing process, would have flagged as an issue. Given that there is basically no movie unless you view these actions as lionizing of Emilia, though there's really no way to change this without basically a complete rewrite.
This is slow. Rewrites. I was always calling for rewrites.
Anyways, it's time to deal with Jesse's affair partner when she was with Manitas, turned actual partner now that she thinks he's dead, Gustavo, played by Edgar Ramirez.
Hasta me duele la pinche vulva
Well, that's fun.
Actually, there's really not that much to say here other than they've started seeing each other, and when Jessie gets back, Emilia asks her if she ever cheated on her old husband, the answer, of course, being yes, and then she asks her how the sex was, which is a really weird thing to fucking ask. But then we get a rather touching scene with one of Emilia's children. I'm just kidding, of course, it's one of the scenes that's been absolutely lambasted for being rather offensive. The song is about how the child feels that Emilia smells like his father, which would stand to reason given they are the same person. But the absurdity comes in the sheer quantity and logic of the things that are listed as things that Emilia smells like, which to demonstrate, I will now read them all to you in order. She smells like Papa, the mountains, leather and coffee, spicy food, sugar, lamb, a car engine, Coca-Cola with lemon and ice, sweat, little pebbles, grass, mezcal and guacamole, dogs, and finally, cigars. And I would say, obviously, mezcal and guacamole stand out as something that really no one would ever smell like, and that line really has to have been written by either the most racist guy you know, or just a big fan of the chain restaurant Chili's. And it's at this point I really was starting to lose faith in the musical numbers, and was really suffering. That's just the truth. Emilia then hosts a charity gala for the NGO that she and Rita are running, causing Rita to do a truly unhinged musical number where she takes a woman's blonde hair extensions and uses it to pantomime pubic hair, essentially. And by the way, YouTube AI watching this, that's all good. That checks out, because she, there's nothing sexual about that. She was actually trying to replicate the elaborate ribbon routines that you can also watch on this platform. Rita is overall very unsatisfied with her life, saying that she wants kids, but she doesn't have a husband. A line so pointed, I'm sure it won't at all be relevant later in the film. Excuse me. Anyways, Emilia finds love in the hands of a woman who lost her husband to cartel violence, and Jessie decides to get engaged to Gustavo. This presents obviously a bit of a problem because she's going to be taking the kids, since from her perspective, her husband is dead, and why wouldn't she be taking the kids with her new husband? Generally, there's no such thing as shared custody between a obscure aunt and the mother, but this is really where Emilia as a character kind of goes off the wall. Emilia, sensing that Jessie's going to be taking the kids, gets into a physical fight with Jessie. And I'm gonna nitpick. I don't even think this is nitpicking. I think this is fundamental analysis of a poorly written character. People got upset during the Civil War video, but you know what? We're doing it because it needs to be done. Emilia used to be a leader of a cartel, which is not a position that one tends to hold for very long or be very successful at if they are not, to a degree, intelligent and calculating. If you want to keep the kids, you've got a couple options. Kill Jessie, pretty much a non-starter, but it's worth bringing up because that is an option, or break up her engagement in one way or another with Gustavo. Emilia does this in such a way where it's destined to cause problems. She uses her cartel connections to beat up Gustavo, give him $100,000, tell him to leave Mexico City. In what world did you think this was gonna work? I mean, did you see Gustavo and Jessie's chemistry when they were doing karaoke? They're practically a modern-day Romeo and Juliet. You've essentially told him that he needs to take Jessie and the kids and get out of town, and you've given him $100,000 with which to facilitate this. So option 3, killing Gustavo, not what Emilia ended up doing, was really her only choice. Short of obviously telling Jessie her true identity. The problem here, though, is as soon as Jessie told you, hey, I'm engaged to Gustavo, and yeah, I mean, obviously we're gonna, move somewhere else, but we don't have it all figured out yet. If you, instead of fighting her, had thought methodically about this, you could have just killed Gustavo, and she would have had no idea. And then she would stay there and you get to keep the kids. Unethical, sure, but it would accomplish your goal, and given that you were a cartel boss, I don't really think you're a particularly ethical person. But the problem is now, after having fought Jessie, she obviously would know it was you if, in fact, her husband or fiance did get murdered. I don't really think it's a stretch to assume that a former criminal mastermind can war games all of this out, given that I am a white guy from the suburbs and I thought all of this up in 3 minutes. My closest experience with Machiavellianism is just enjoying the TV show Big Brother. Either way, Jessie flees with the kids, and then we get the slightly schizophrenic sequence of the phone calls where Rita is in the middle, mostly just telling everybody to stay calm. It's here I will say that although this is a bad example, I really actually did enjoy a lot of the editing choices that were made in Emilia Perez. I honestly am not going to be shocked if it does win Best Editing, even though, you know, Challengers was snubbed, which is a crime. There's also a lot of stuff done from a cinematography perspective and from a lighting perspective that I think really works throughout the film. So on a technical level, there honestly was a lot to like about Emilia Perez. The problem is everything else around it was, merde. And speaking of French, by the way, some people who really didn't like Emilia Perez made their own parody of Emilia Perez, which is just like an offensive French caricature. Look at how stereotypical they are. I just think it's funny. And I think it really goes to show you at the heart of all of these criticisms of Emilia Perez is a fundamental misrepresentation of Mexican culture. Back to the plot, back to that terrible cell phone number. Eventually, Rita comes to realize that Emilia Perez has been kidnapped by Jesse, and they sever 3 of her fingers, indicating that they want $30 million. And then there's a brief moment where the guards that Rita is hiring to go rescue Emilia look like they're about to do the cup song with assault rifles. But after that, we are on our way to rescue Emilia, and it does not go super well. And this is what really upsets me, because Emilia's guards are surrounding the building that she is being kept in. It's really more of a shack. They're in the hills, they're strategic, it's very much depicted as like, oh, they're special operations, like they're gonna rescue her. Not one fucking person watches the back door. You're telling me you're going to get like 10 guys all around and you're not going to station one person in the back door? Because Gustavo is going to take Jesse and Emilia into his car out the back door and escape. And if there had just been one person there that Gustavo shoots, then it would not only heighten the fact that, oh my gosh, he really looks like he could kill Emilia, like whatever. It would dissuade this criticism. It would make this criticism vanish, just like the crimes of Manitas, according to Emilia. But before she is shoved in a trunk again by Gustavo, Emilia confides in Jesse with some very personal and very romantic details that, in fact, Emilia Perez used to be her husband. Realizing that her former husband is in the trunk, Jesse really wants Gustavo to pull over. Gustavo refuses. Then Jesse draws a gun, and then Gustavo brakes and tries to get the gun and basically swerves off the road, and then they careen off a cliff and all die in an explosion, which really, to me, read as a little bit more comedic than serious. Well, I don't think anybody is going to be walking away from that car. Like, you didn't really need the explosion. Just a brutal, visceral car crash does the job. Rita then agrees to take the kids, and that's basically your movie. Remember, everybody, if you haven't yet found Mr. or Mrs. Right, perhaps one of your friends might die in a fiery car accident, and then you'll be able to just repossess their kids Harry Potter style. I don't hate Emilia Perez. It is not nearly as bad as some of the dregs of cinema that I have covered for this channel. It's actually, you know, unique. Or weird. And that's about the most positivity I'm going to be able to muster for this rather pathetic excuse for a Best Picture frontrunner. Generally, when one takes the time to read intelligent analysis of a film from creatives and critics after having watched it, your opinion of the film increases. That is not the case with Emilia Perez. The more I read that people have written about it, the less and less I'm actually liking the film. It isn't a good representation of the trans experience. It reinforces stereotypes that are hundreds of years old and does a disservice to the entire queer community. It isn't a good depiction of the realities of cartel violence or of Mexico in general. It was filmed in France with American Hollywood actress stars made by a French director who doesn't even speak Spanish and openly admitted to doing no research. It is very telling that despite the story and the subject material, that Emilia Perez will be the French submission in the Best International Film category, not the Mexican one. And this film isn't even a good depiction of musicals. Again, maybe narrowly beating Joker 2. And if you're just narrowly beating Joker 2, that is like just narrowly beating a 100-year-old tortoise in a foot race and then dousing yourself in champagne as soon as you cross the finish line. And the sad part is that when all of this is said and done, Emilia Perez has a very good shot of taking home the most prestigious award in all of cinema. So, for the Academy, for your consideration, if you guys promise to watch the 3.5-hour long movie, The Brutalist, I promise to also watch it, and then we both mutually promise we are not going to give Best Picture to Emilia Perez. I don't even know what it's about, but I am willing to take it sight unseen just so that Emilia Perez doesn't win. I'm willing to do that. Any other movie besides Emilia Perez, well, except for Wicked. Thanks again to Scentbird for sponsoring the video. Again, you can use my code PAT55 to get 55% off your first fragrance for only $8, and your next month is only going to be $16.95. Super affordable. If you want to read more about the critiques of Emilia Perez, I've got some more links down below in the description. But that's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've enjoyed it, please leave a like. Please comment on this video. It helps get it out to more people. I super duper appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts down below. Have you seen it? It's been out on Netflix for a while, and it's really... It's an upsetting film. So comment down below. And as always, my name is Patrick, but my friends call me Pat, and I'll see you for the next one.